Because I remember the first time Tony told me that he loved me, I couldn't say it.
Like, well, that went well. I guess I was better at the kiss, I said, because the love part didn't go too well. The great thing about Cindy and I, when we start something, it's like an assembly line. Together, it's like we're one entity, and then all of a sudden, here's this great creation we just did.
You know what we call that? Synergy.
There you go.
Take a girl and a guy, and they fall madly in love and form a family. Sprinkle in some counseling degrees and a doctorate, a dream of transforming relationships as we know it. And 20 years later, we give you power couple Dr. Ray and Jean Ketkodian. And this is their podcast, Couples Synergy.
And welcome back to another episode of Couples Synergy with Dr. Ray and Jean. Hi, I'm Dr. Ray.
And I'm Jean, and this is our podcast about love, marriage, and relationships.
Please check us out online on our Facebook page and Instagram at Couples Synergy or our website, couplessynergy.com. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast or send us any suggestions on topics you'd like to hear more about. And now on to Couples Synergy, an in-depth look at love, marriage, and relationships, where we bring you our experience helping thousands of couples transform their relationships for over 20 years.
You know, every day we get to hear intimate details about a couple's celebrations, disappointments, and everyday challenges. We've often wished these stories were shared because we know we are more similar than different. And so we've created not only an avenue we can hear about people's intimate lives, but an atmosphere where people come over to our home pub, pour a drink, and share their stories.
People like today's guests, Cindy and Tony. Thank you so much for being on our podcast today, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And what do you think of the pub?
I love it.
Yeah, it's a pub, definitely.
It is definitely a pub. You know, with COVID and all that stuff, it's been very difficult to have people over in person.
Yeah, we've done a lot of Zoom.
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of Zoom interviews, and we are fortunate to have you guys come over here in person and do this interview. We love doing the interviews in person. Mm-hmm. Just Zoom, it loses something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, before we get into your story, why don't you guys tell us a little bit about yourselves? How old are you, and what do you do for a living?
Well, I'm just turned 57, and I work in an office right now. I sell high-end promotional products, and I've actually been selling promotional products for probably the last 10 or 12 years, but I went to inside sales from outside sales, more or less to not have to work 24/7. It's tiring sitting on my butt all day, but I like the advantages, so.
Nice.
Myself, I'm a self-employed plumbing contractor. I've been doing plumbing over 30 years now. I enjoy it. It's good you always come into a situation where people are in the worst possible point they could be in their life when water's pouring through their ceiling. And it's kind of nice to be there and get their life back in order and help them out, give them hot water and stuff like that. So it's something I really enjoy it. And that's all I've really ever done my whole life.
We should have given you a call the other day. We
Yeah.
replaced our sub pump.
Yep, get a lot of those, right?
Can you guys tell us the story of how you met?
Well, we met through a mutual friend, and we were friends for probably about 2 years before we started dating. And when we started dating, and I have to tell the story, and Tony says it in a different way, but I think it's hilarious. He had gone through a pretty bad breakup, and I was kind of just dating a bunch of different people at different times because I wasn't happy finding anybody. And we were just meeting up at this one little place close to my house called Rep's Place, and just meeting up for dinner and just talking, like, once or twice a week. And, I would check in on him, and he'd call and check in on me, and we became close friends then, and just kind of leaned on each other a lot. And then one day, clear out of the blue, we're sitting there eating dinner, and I noticed he kept turning his truck on. It was cold out. And I'm thinking, why are you leaving or something? Are you leaving because you keep starting your truck, And oh no, it's fine, it's fine. So we go to leave, and he always made sure I got in my car and sent me on my way, and then he would leave. And he said, "Hold on 1 second." And he runs to his car and he comes back and he's got a bottle of wine and flowers. And he leans and I'm in the driver's side, and he leans in the passenger side. And he said, "This is why I had to keep the car running, because I was afraid the flowers were going to die."
Wow.
And then he leaned in and he kissed me. And I never thought of Tony like that, because he had been in a relationship and I was not in a good place. And so I just saw him as a friend. And I remember he went home and I went home, and I texted him and I said, "So what happened? What is this?" And he said, I don't know, and then we just started talking, and then we started dating, and here we are.
And this is why men and women can't be friends.
Right, exactly.
And that, I agree 100%. You can't have a male friend when you're
Yeah.
in a relationship,
He
because
didn't know what happened. He had a bottle
Yeah.
of wine and some flowers.
I did not. And
waiting.
actually, her armrest was so armor-all, actually slipped onto her lip.
that's what he says.
And that's what really happened. And she took it the wrong way.
I slipped.
And then, or Reese told a couple people that I grabbed him and kissed him, and yeah, that's what it was.
There's multiple stories on this.
Yes, there is.
No, when we would meet and stuff, Cindy would always say, "You're such a great guy. There's going to be a wonderful woman out there for you." And over the time of just meeting up with Cindy and stuff, and you start analyzing the stuff when you get home on your own time, and you're seeing what's sitting across from you and is telling you what you are, and you haven't heard that, and you kind of start getting different feelings. And I wasn't good at telling my feelings that way. I'm not a great communicator to begin with. So it was my one shot. I figured go for it all. Or
Did you think you were like in the friend zone? Is that what you were?
no, I knew I felt that we were going somewhere, another direction. The friend stuff was starting to go away, and it was starting to become where I saw her, I felt just wonderful being with her and around her. And she kept telling me there's just going to be a lucky woman out there one day, and she would say that over and over again. And it was like I said, you go home and analyze it, and you're like, well, I think this is the woman. And she was, I mean, definitely, but Cindy has always been friend first, and, she's not aggressive that way, and so someone had to be aggressive, and it was it was like a situation where you couldn't just like talk about it. I just felt you had to just go all in.
How long did you have those feelings before you acted on them?
Probably a week before I did the flowers and the wine, I started, because I would catch myself being excited to go see Cindy for dinner and to talk, and it wasn't just like your friends when you're going to get together with your friends. It was a different feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Why did you tell him there was always going to be some wonderful, lucky woman out there?
Because he was at that time pretty down on himself from the relationship that he had just come out of, and I had been there myself with my previous relationship for 7 years, and it took me 7 years to get out of it, and I knew exactly how he was feeling, but because I knew her too, I saw how wonderful he was to her, no matter how horribly she treated him. I saw it, and I thought, she's crazy, she's crazy. But I never said anything then. That wasn't my place. It wasn't my business. It wasn't. But I just saw how great. I mean, the things that he did that I've never saw a man in my life, with the previous 10 years do for me. So I just thought, don't be so. What's wrong? He kept saying, "What's wrong with me?" And I'm why can't I just find a good person, and I just want to be happy, and I hated to see him so down, because if he could see himself the way I saw him for the previous 2 years, I mean, so I was just trying to build up his confidence and let him know that you've got so many good qualities, and I didn't know him as, I hadn't been intimate with him or anything, so I didn't know him in that way, but I saw the way he treated someone else that he was in a relationship with, and I would take it. that's what I was trying to say. You're such a good man. I mean, at least from what I saw. I didn't see anything behind closed doors, but from what I saw on the outside, and it wasn't even things that I saw. It was things that I saw that were posted on social media, or things that person talked about all the wonderful things he did. I mean, those are the things that I saw. And I kept saying to him, what happened wasn't your fault. What happened wasn't because you did something wrong. You did everything right. You're an amazing man. You're everything you do, and the things that you do for other people.
So all during this time when you guys are hanging out at Rep's place, which, by the way, has great burgers.
We got
We
engaged
love
there
Rep's
too.
place. Oh, did you? Wow.
Oh, we'll get
Okay.
into that.
And Rep's place is not paying us for this plug.
Maybe you should make them.
So while you guys are hanging out here and you're telling him all this stuff, did you have feelings for him?
I started to, I did start to, but I didn't think that he did. So I wasn't going to be an aggressor like that. I just wasn't. I felt, and I also felt like it was too soon, because he had just come out of even though I knew that what was happening in his relationship was coming to an end, it had been for a few months. I knew, because I talked to some other people and knew what was going on. And even though he never could admit it, I knew he struggled for several months before it actually ended. But it was still fresh, it was new, and I just felt like maybe he just needs some time to himself, and but in due time the right woman is going to come along, and you deserve that, and it's going to happen. Just be patient, and I did, and I mean, when he kissed me, I obviously didn't turn away. I didn't say, "Oh no, what do you know?" I kissed him right back. So I did have some feelings, but if he wouldn't have done anything, I wouldn't have acted on him, just because of the situation. And I didn't want, he was still trying to deal with his emotions of what had just happened and what he had gone through. So I didn't want to cloud him and his healing process.
Yeah, we did an episode on why men and women can't be friends, because you put deposits into that account, and sooner or later it flips. It gets high enough, all those deposits, and then it shifts.
Yeah.
So perfect example of that.
Yeah.
So what happens from there? How long ago was that?
2.5 years ago. 2.5. January 23rd was the day that he kissed me.
What year?
2019.
2019. Okay.
And what happens from there?
Well, then we decided, let's get together and go on a date, because I guess we never saw what we were doing as dating, and we had already known each other. We knew what each other did. We knew a lot about each other, but we had never talked really in depth, and we had gotten really in depth as friends about a lot of things. And we started dating, and we became really close really quick, because we talked about things. I told him things that I haven't told another man. And he's told me things that he hasn't told other people ever. And, so we just really connected. and then we just started dating, and then we started having we had some problems, just some things were happening in our relationship that we just weren't clicking. And I think a lot of it, what was happening is, for me, it was moving really fast and I was really scared, and I was hanging on to what had happened when I was in that relationship for 7 years. And I invested so much of myself, my time, my heart, my money, and I was thrown to the side and made to feel like I was this big and I was nothing. And he was kind of going through the same thing. He lost himself, he lost money, he lost time, and for a year and a half, he was in a relationship just like the one that I was in for 7 years, that it was draining, and it kind of started to catch up to us, and we both we were kind of like just not really. I don't even know really how to explain it, but
you didn't have a pathway through it.
we weren't. We were struggling. I still had my condo, but I was staying at the house a lot. And then he had said he wanted me to move in. I want to say it was like June or July of that year. So I slowly started to move my stuff in and stay there, but I didn't let go of my condo. And my son, who was like 20 years old at the time or whatever, he was okay with it because, he just had his girlfriend come over and stay for the weekend when I was gone or whatever. And then it kind of just started to fade off and get worse. And then I quit staying as much, and I kind of started moving my stuff back out. And then towards the end of that year, we were arguing a lot, and then that following, I think it was February or something like that, I kind of just said I need some time, and I kind of broke up with them, and I wouldn't talk to him for like 2 or 3 weeks. And at first, I think he thought, oh, we're just kind of taking a little break, and then he kind of, and now I'll let him take it from here, because then he said something, me being gone and the reality of me really being gone changed everything.
So you guys initially came together, bonded by the common experiences you both had gone through in your previous relationships. And then what you guys ran into is something we call emotional echoes. And these echoes from these past relationships, they come into the present relationship, and you guys didn't have a template on how to handle that.
Right.
Okay.
What's your sense?
Well, mine is more communication. Cindy's really good at that, and talking and speaking and voicing her opinion and stuff like that. Where I'm not, I'm more of the put it on the back burner. I'll get to it. The troubleshooter guy, it just at the last minute comes through.
If the house isn't flooding, there's no reason to look at the plumbing.
Exactly. Wait till you need a new pump before you need a new pump.
Right. Well, we didn't need a new pump. We actually put it in as a precursor. Well, it did
Well, we
burn
knew
out.
it burned out.
It did burn out. Yeah,
Right.
right.
Right,
Let's
exactly.
let's
No,
just
we won't
scratch
go there.
that. Okay.
But right, so my lack of communication and being upfront, and a lot of things I didn't talk about, and you don't look at it as you told I didn't see it as you told a lie. I seen it as I just didn't talk about it. A lot of times when it's something bad in my life, I let it go. It's just from past experience and what I did before being a plumber. You let things go. You erase it from your mind and move forward. Because if you didn't hurt nobody in your own mind, I guess. And that's how it was. And it just accumulated, and it hurt Cindy, and I realized that. And it took when she was gone, and then COVID hit, obviously, and then you couldn't do anything, so I really felt I hit home, and what I really enjoyed about her, and I missed her. It was just plain and simple. A lot of regrets. Wish I was more upfront, stuff like that. but I didn't give up. And there was a lot of points of it where she was like, no, no, no. And no was not the answer. And because I knew we had so much, because at the beginning, everything was so great. And then all the past hit us all at once. But I felt that could be overcome, because present, today, and tomorrow is what it's all about. I mean, the past is gone. We have to move forward. And, and I wanted to be with Cindy, and I really fought hard to get her back, and she did.
That's a really common experience. Only you guys did it in a year instead of 20, which is really typical, when a couple gets together and then they're busy buying houses and their careers and kids, and then they get to 20 years and one of them's like, I'm done. It's usually the woman, and the guy's like, I didn't even know we were having a problem. And then they are like, oh, don't leave me. I'll work on it now. And it's really, we hear that a lot.
Yeah. I mean, relationships are developmental, and in the beginning of a relationship, it's very easy, and then you get into the hard work, right? And you guys, it seemed like it happened very quickly, where you moved from things were easy to now it's the hard work.
Yeah.
So what are some of the lessons that you've learned from past relationships that the two of you are working through now?
Well, I've learned, and I learned this actually because after my past relationship that I was in, that was very, it was a very difficult relationship. And I stayed because I really believed that something was wrong with me and that it wasn't him. And then, of course, my wonderful Betsy said, no, we're not going to do this. And she talked me into going back to counseling, and I did. And I got stronger by the day. And the one thing that I learned is that if I don't feel like I'm able to be myself, then I need to go back to counseling, that I need to speak up, that I need to make myself heard, that I can't shut down, that I can't, because for me, I'll shut down, but it'll build. And then when it builds, I explode. And it's not pretty. And Tony and I have learned together, and it doesn't always happen right away. It's baby steps for us. But we've learned that, because we have so much in common, but we have so many things that are different about us. But we're learning, when we first got together, we didn't realize that we're like, he's here and I'm here. I mean, I'm very planning and organizing and do now and impatient, and he's like winging it, but he always comes through, but like he says, but it's on his time when he's ready, and I'm sitting there going, no, wait, and so it's a process for us, and we've learned to try to meet each other, and we're getting closer and closer to that point where and we know everything's not always going to be perfect, but we're getting to that point. But for me, I just need, what I learned from my previous relationships is that I need to make sure that I not only listen, but I need to be heard, because, and that may sound selfish, but I need to, and I feel like, because I know for a fact that Tony wasn't heard, I need to try to listen to him, because I've been in his place. So that was a benefit that I took from that relationship in my relationship with Tony, because if I hadn't been in that place, I wouldn't understand him. But I've been there, so I understand some of the things that he's feeling and he goes through. Now, the way he may communicate them to me, I don't necessarily like sometimes. And sometimes I want to elaborate. I don't want to just say, if I say, okay, well, I'm having a problem with this, he'll say, okay, well, I'll work on it. No, I want to talk about it more. I want to, because I was never able to do that. I was always told to just be quiet. You talk too much. What are you, stupid or something? And nothing I did was good enough. And I don't ever want to be in that place again. But I know Tony's not that person because he doesn't talk to me like that. He doesn't treat me like that. He's never called me stupid. He's never stood up and pointed his finger at me, and he's never done those things to me. So he's not that person. But sometimes when he doesn't listen to me like I want him to listen, I feel like he's not hearing me. And I want him to hear me because I wasn't heard before. So that's what I got out of my past relationship.
Which is huge.
Yeah.
Huge. What about you, Tony?
My thing was to not so much be who somebody else wants me to be. That's what I learned. A big lesson on that. Because you could do all that and have all the pretty things and nice things and be miserable. And my ex previous life was like that. Had everything paid for, but miserable. Because you're being somebody that you're not, because you're trying to make that person happy in their way, not in a way of togetherness. And with Cindy, I've taken all that, and like she says, sometimes it's hard, but I'm not like that no more. Where now I've got to be happy, because if I'm not happy, I can't make Cindy happy. And I learned that I have to get myself happy to keep her happy, and because it drains on her. If I'm down, it affects her. And you never realize it for it. And it took time and years to realize that you have to be up. And that's part of being the man, too, of the house. You have to keep the rhythm going, the good feelings, the good vibes, and say, this is what I like to do, and I know what Cindy likes to do. And like she said, we do a lot together because we both are on the same page of what we do. But when the great thing about Cindy and I, when we start something, it's like an assembly line. I've never seen anything like it in my life with employees that I've had or people I've worked with. Together, it's like we're one entity. It's like we already know what the other one's going to. We have no plan, but Cindy will take over and I'll take over, and we'll come together and give a hug and a kiss, and then go back, and then all of a sudden, here's this great creation we just did. And it's remarkable. It's like it was meant to be.
He's talking like our backyard and working in the house,
Well,
or even
just
going
everything.
camping.
Yeah.
He's
It's
outside
assembly
hooking
line.
up, and
Yeah.
and I'm inside cleaning up and doing this, and we do work. I've never had, and I was married for 18 years, my first marriage, and I've never had a relationship like that either, where we know what the other one's thinking, we know what the other one's doing, and we know what the final plan is. Today, for instance, we had a project that we're going to build something for a gift for somebody, and we went to the store, bought the supplies, and I wanted to get some stuff done inside the house, and he's outside working, and I went inside and I started my stuff. He came out and asked if I could help draw. I went out there. Then I went in the house and I finished up more stuff. And while he was working, I looked at the clock. I threw a pizza in the oven. I went outside and said, there's some pizza. Let's go grab something to eat outside. We sit outside for a couple of minutes. We have a wine cooler and eat some pizza. And then he goes back out. I go back in. And it's like we are so in sync with getting stuff done, but we work together. There's no... These are your things and these are my things. If I'm busy in the kitchen and the dogs need to be fed, he'll come and feed the dogs. If I'm, I make breakfast on a Saturday morning and we're getting ready to go for a ride, usually after I make breakfast, I'll do the dishes. But if I need to get in the shower first to get ready because it's going to take me a little longer, he does the dishes. And I don't have to ask. And he doesn't ask. We just do. If something needs to be done and the other person's busy, we do it.
You know what we call that? Synergy.
There you go.
Well, it is pretty awesome, I think, because I've never
Absolutely.
been like that in
Yeah.
my life with somebody.
Are you guys surprised at yourselves for how quick in that relationship you stayed true to yourself and didn't give yourself away like you had in past relationships?
I'm a little surprised. I'm a little surprised only because it had been a couple years since I had been in that really bad relationship for 7 years. And for that 2 years, I dated a lot of people, but I was like, I'd go out on a date, and if I felt like there was one little, that's it, I'm moving on. And people would say, that's a lot of guys. And I'm like, but I'm just not going to settle. And until I find that person that I know I'm going to be able to click with, I'm too old. I'm too old to be abused like that again. I won't ever put myself in that situation again, ever. I won't. And there's been times even with Tony where if we had a problem, my first thing for those 2 years was to run. If I was a first date or dating somebody for a month or 3 months, if it wasn't working, I'm gone. I'm gone. I'm just gone. And it was easy. And I did. And I didn't care. And a couple times in the beginning, when things had started going bad that end of that year, I tried to run a couple times because I wasn't seeing any of the good in our relationship, and there was much more good than bad. I would get a feeling, and I'd put up a red flag and say, oh, I'm out. There's no, and Tony would come through, even if didn't matter who was making the mistake, he would come through one way or another and make amends, and we would fix it and we'd work on it, and it would get better. And those same things didn't continue to happen. But I had a wall up for quite a bit of time there.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, after 18 years of a relationship and then 7 years in a relationship, it would be understandable to be pretty jaded.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you were able to, or the two of you were able to break through that jadedness, right? And the pattern that the two of you have been used to in the past.
Well, my first marriage for 18 years, though, ended because of a family trauma. And I thought, and I still believe that it was a good marriage until that happened. And once that happened for 3 years, I still tried and wanted it to work, and with counseling and everything else. And he kind of was in denial of what had happened in our family and didn't want to deal with it. So he stopped going to counseling. He stopped participating in the healing process of our marriage. And that's when I left. So I don't view that as a bad relationship. I view it as someone who couldn't handle what had happened. And me, I was in a different place. I felt like it was my position as the mom and the family to fix this. And I just went into that mom mode, and I did set my husband and my relationship to the side to focus on my family and my children and the trauma. And so for me, I may have made a mistake in not still being a partner, but I went into protection mode. But I had felt that through counseling, maybe he and I could have worked that out, but he was in denial and couldn't participate. So he went in another direction and did some things that I just couldn't excuse after 3 years.
Yeah, the law of attraction is like attracts like, and if one of you starts to grow and the other one doesn't, it just puts a lot of stress and distance on the relationship. Yeah.
Was it a similar experience for you, Tony?
Mine was more. We really didn't. The last 4 or 5 years of our marriage, we were brother and sister. We were business partners, and slept in different rooms, and and it was like work. You came home at the end of the day and work never stopped, because I ran the plumbing end of it and all the carpenter crews, electricians and stuff like that. She was a designer, and yeah, it just got wearing and wearing and wearing. But like I said, we had an empire, but it was like, but there was no love there at all,
There was no marriage.
no marriage. Exactly. It's like being brother and sister pretty much, or business partners. And it just got, and I approached and said and explained it to her one time and broke down, and it didn't do any good. And that's when I said, that's when I obviously broke away. But the whole thing though has taught me to where you have to contribute in so many ways in a marriage. Just like you said, guys are always like, I thought everything was fine, and you're right, because we're blind, and just you go with the everyday thing, and it's just like Groundhog Day. You just live the day, you just go through it, and everything's fine. But I realized, no, it's not how it works. And with Cindy, it's because she's been through all that. She's been a big help to me in making me, I wouldn't say I wasn't a man before, but making me a real good man. This woman has done that. And I, just the good qualities that she has and the patience she had with me and the acceptance of, okay, Tony, let's get this right this time. And we are, and we've done it, and we're going to keep doing it. And I understand it's not just me. I have to look out for my wife and her feelings. My background from when I started with service, there is no feelings. It's, it's just, it's hard to explain. Yeah. And so many times you heard the word F your feelings. There's no such thing. Okay. And it's stuck in you forever, and it's hard to understand it. People do have feelings, and everybody feels things differently. And I understand that, and I really am, and I will work tremendously for this woman and do whatever I have to do, because she has lifted my spirits, my soul, and I feel wonderful around her all the time. Even though sometimes she may not think so, because I may look like I'm angry or upset, and then she'll be like, what's with the voice, and it's nothing, we have bad days at work and stuff like that, and I try not to bring work home. Cindy likes to talk to me about work and stuff and like that, and I was never like that, because the relationship was all about the work and the scheduling and this and this and that. So sometimes I get a little snap a little bit at Cindy, and she only wants to know how my day. I realize that she wants to know if her husband had a good day. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about: is things going your way. And I'm realizing that it's not. She's not trying to control anything, and that's what the part that used to be like. And I have to understand that that's not what this is. But you see those signs, and you start thinking right away. But it's not. It's a totally different person. And that's what I always got to keep in my head, that this is a different person, and this is the person I fell in love with for that reason. But it's getting better. It takes time for me to process stuff like that. But when I do, like Cindy said, I follow through. And, but she's a wonderful woman. I can't say enough about her. So.
When we broke up for that 3 to 4 weeks, he put up a fence in the backyard. He built me a potting bench. He put in a little pathway. I'm thinking I might leave for 3 weeks again or something. I don't know. I mean, he did so much.
It was just to show her, this is for real, Cindy. And like she said, you're in your 50s. It's a different time in your life. You already, what you don't want to deal with. You know what you want. You don't want to play the game. And I said, I just want to live a good life and be happy. And I know every day can be happy, but, let's do our best to make it that way.
What were you guys taught about relationships from your caregivers?
Well, mine's quick and easy. I'm the oldest of 5 kids. My birth mother left my father. She had me when she was 17, and there were 5 of us within 6 years. She left my dad when I was 7 and said, "You can have the house and the cars and everything, just take the kids."
And where are you in the birth order?
I'm the oldest.
Oldest.
And my youngest brother was 1 when she left. And about, I don't know how long it was, maybe a year after she left, my dad met a woman, a waitress. He was a truck driver at a truck stop, and he married her 3 weeks later. And he says the joke was, he said, I gave her $100 tip and said, I've got 5 kids at home and I really need a babysitter. Will you marry me? Well, they got married. And she quit waitressing, and she stayed, and she had a son that was 1 year old, and she stayed home and she took care of us. And that woman raised us and loved us like we were her own. So my birth mother, I saw nothing but bad things with her until she died when I was 26. I tried my whole life to have a relationship with her, and every attempt was fatal. But my stepmother and my father, I never heard them fight. They had to have fought, but I never saw them fight, never heard them fight. They always held hands. They always, my dad would come home from work, and of course, we're all happy to see him, and the dog wants to see him, and he'd ignore us all and say, hold on, and he'd go straight to my mother, and he'd give her a kiss and tell her he loved her. He always told her he loved her before he left the house. They had no money, but we had a good life. And that's what I was taught. And that's what I always wanted. And I swore I would never be like my birth mom. Like my first son I had out of wedlock, and I didn't even think I wanted kids. I didn't expect him. He was a surprise. Not a mistake, a surprise. And I decided to have him, and I swore I would never leave my kids and be like that. So I think I had a really, really good upbringing, even though it started out the way it did. And when you're here, Tony's, it's almost the same thing. It's so weird.
How old were you when your mom left?
7.
You were 7.
Yeah. Well, wait till he tells you his. It's so weird how similar. Yeah.
Mine was my mom and dad, obviously. They got married, and I think 3 months, they were married 3 months, and then she got pregnant, and then I was born. And a year later, she left me on the front porch of my grandparents' house, and I never met her.
You never met your birth mom?
No. And which was, because I never met her, I didn't really know much, because my grandparents were, my grandmother I called Mom, and my grandfather I called Pa, because my dad was still in my life, kind of in and out. My dad was married 3 times, and he moved all over the place. And the best thing was my grandparents taking me, and they told my dad. I remember I was probably about 5 or 6. And I remember my dad said, "Dad, I got my life together. Let me take Anthony." And he said to him, he goes, "No, you got a wife with 2 daughters that you treat better than your own son." And he said, "And you're moving around too much. He's got a community, a schooling system. He's staying here with us." And I remember just sitting there, and I didn't say anything. I'm too young to even know what's going on. That was my home anyway. That was the best day of my life. So, but my grandfather was, he was a real man figure. He was a tremendous man. He was a hard worker, raised me good. He was a Marine. Tough guy, toughest man I ever met in my life, and not a bragger. We didn't have nothing either, had no money and stuff like that, but he taught me a good work ethic and how to be a man. Followed his footsteps. He died when I was 17, but I followed everything he did, and to this day I think he would be proud. But my dad died in 2005. We started the last 12 years of his life, got close, because I was successful. And I think it brought him closer to me because, well, he was all, like I said, he was in his third marriage and he moved around a lot. And he liked to fish, and I had a boat, and we'd go with my uncles, do fishing and stuff like that. So we became closer. But it took my dad till the day I had to go and tell him he had 2 weeks to live because he had pancreatic cancer. And he finally said, "I'm proud of you."
Wow.
And that was tough. It took death for him to do that. My dad was tough too. I mean, he was in the military as well. So it was all tough guys. But my grandfather was my biggest inspiration, because when we had his wake, it was for 2 days, and the line was out the door for 2 days. And I was like, oh my God. And he never talked about anything like what he did, but all these people that came up to me, if you ever need anything in life, your grandfather helped my family. I mean, it was everybody. And I was just amazed at this man, what he did and the legacy he left, and never knew anything about it. He never was a bragger. He just helped people. And that's why we had nothing. But I understood, but it made me like that. And I did the same thing my whole life and helped people. And you sometimes it was for good, and sometimes you got the bad end of the stick of it. But my grandfather he did teach me enough up to 17 to get me through life. And thank God for that decision they made to keep me. And I mean, I couldn't thank God more, And I always, whenever my grandmother was introduced, they would always introduce her as, this is the grandmother of Anthony, not only the grandmother, but also the mother. And, it was always, because she was just a fabulous woman, tremendous.
It sounds like you guys had some really significant role models growing up, and then you both share that same piece of your mother's not being there for you, right? Your biological mothers. And that obviously was something that bonded you both together, that similarity.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yep.
So it's all those, I guess, the past stuff that made our strength to where it is today. And I think that's why Cindy accepts me so much, is because she's been on that side of the fence, and it's just much easier. And that's, I guess, what God's plan was, to bring two people together that experience so much. I mean, I know he only hopes those who help themselves, and I think we did our deed at the time to finally meet one another and have a good life.
How did you guys know you were each other's person?
I don't think I knew in the beginning, because I remember the first time Tony told me that he loved me, I couldn't say it.
No, I remember that too. I was like, well, that went well. I guess I was better at the kiss. I said, because the love part didn't go too well.
It's not that I didn't think that I did. I think I was scared. I think I was just so burnt from having what I thought was a great marriage to that failing, to then, 5 years later or whatever it was, getting married a second time for 7 years to somebody who pretty much destroyed me. I think a part of me didn't even know even though I knew this was a wonderful man, a part of me was saying, am I good enough? Or is he going to do the same thing to me? Or there was just so many things in my head that wasn't about him. It was just me. Just like I said, these walls kept going up, and
Like you doubted yourself.
I did. So I didn't want to tell him I loved him. I was afraid. So I don't know that I didn't love him. I just couldn't tell him when he told me. I think I told him like a week later. But it was weird
week.
because once he told me, it's all I thought about, and I was trying to get it in my head. What's wrong with me? Why can't I tell him? Look at how you feel. Look at how, I would have done anything for him, and I still would. And I was just so wrapped up in what if, and I catch myself at that sometimes now, still doing that. Well, what if? I get scared, and then I take a look at the whole picture and not that moment. And I realize that, knock it off, get over this, and you guys are going to work through this. We'll figure it out. Maybe not tonight. Might have to be tomorrow. I might have to, be patient, which is hard for me because I want to talk about it now. I want to talk about it right now. And he wants to just give me space. And that's hard for me because then I feel rejection and I feel being pushed away. And, but I know that not only do we have so much in common of bad things that have happened to us, we've got so much in common that are good things. Like, I've never met anybody that wanted to go hiking with me and enjoyed nature. And, he laughed at me because I saved a blue jay in the backyard a month ago, but I know for a fact that he was laughing at me because I wanted to save it. And he's sitting there in the chair, but as soon as it took off across the yard, who went chasing after it? He did, to catch it for me so I could drop it off at the nature center. So he cares too, because we're so much in sync like that. We have that same, not only the same energy about us, but the same, just what we want out of life, how we feel about animals and people in general. And, we're different in some ways because I want to talk and drag things out. And when he gets angry about something or somebody, he's like, oh, I'm going to go to their house and I'm just going to kick their ass and I'm going to, and I'm just like, honey, no, that's not going to be a good idea. We're not going to do that.
It's not a good
Take deep
idea.
breath. No, and then he calms down. He wants to just, and then the Hulk comes, calms down and he's not the Hulk anymore. But not me. I'm not like that. I don't start out, I start out more emotional and then I want to stay emotional until it's resolved. And I need to resolve it before I can move on. And so.
Yeah, that works. All the time, right?
But there's so many things that we have in common and that we both believe in and our morals and values that I've never met someone that I can share that with. So for me, those little things that we still need to work out, and we are little by little, are worth taking the time to work out.
Let you in on a little secret. We're going on 24 years, and that fear, that never goes away.
It's really interesting to hear what you guys have shared so far because there's biological differences in our brains. And so the female brain is designed to look for problems and anticipate, because if we don't, we could be in trouble. And we're like that so we can look at a baby who doesn't speak and figure out what's going on. We could look at the environment and say, is it safe? Before we're in it and we're in trouble, right? And then the other thing we do that's really interesting is that we're designed to bond with someone, even if that person's abusive. And that part is really difficult when that's used against us. And then you don't trust yourself, right? And so, one of the things that we always say is we get wounded through relationship and we heal through relationship. And we always attract someone who can help us do that if you know how to do it. And most people don't know how to do it. And you fumble through it because you don't know. You don't really know. And your stuff bumps into each other. And the male brain is like...
We're designed to compartmentalize, right? To be laser focused on a problem, attack it, and fix it.
And the past doesn't exist.
Right, and get back to homeostasis, right? Don't rock the boat. Things are good. There's no problem. Awesome, right? And then if there's a problem, it's like, oh, I got to fix it to get back to homeostasis. And so we can compartmentalize things and look at things as like, there's a problem over here, but that's fine. I don't have to take care of it right now. I'll go over here, and it's that separation that makes it very difficult to be able to identify that there is something happening that needs to be changed.
And it's actually in our wiring like that. Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think when you're with someone, and your ages are so significant, you cannot do that when you're in your 30s or 40s. You have to be really in your this stage of life in your 50s before you even can figure out that there's a middle space. And what's happening, and you guys are describing it perfectly, like how you move through life together with your projects, your brains are becoming very similar brains. Instead of being over here and over here, you're finding somewhere in the middle because of our mirror neurons. And you'll continue to, it's kind of what we call the forging or the purification part of a relationship, where you have to get all the stuff out that is in between in order to really merge. And that part of you that has that bond that it's too painful to walk away, so we'll do the more painful thing and stay and work through it, so to speak. But the payoff is tremendous. And you guys are really new at this as a couple. I mean, not in life, but as a couple, which is keep working at it. It's fabulous. How did you know she was your person?
Well, that one was, like I said, I take time, and believe it or not, Cindy doesn't realize it sometimes, because I say, you analyze stuff too much. And I do too, but in a different, I don't do it in 5 minutes. Takes me an evening. But I just knew, because I guess when you understand that how hard it is to breathe when somebody's not with you, and, I could start feeling her sadness and her happiness, and the bond was just getting stronger and stronger, and it was emotional, it was loving, it was a friend. Everything was there, all the components to make a marriage. And I was scared to death. I mean, I was married for 24 years. And I was like, oh boy, because I was like, at the first, when that one started, not the same kind of feelings, but there were feelings that made you get married. But because you're older, like you said, my brain looked at it in a different way. And Cindy she's very comforting and mothering, but not smothering. And she knows she can be strong. She's a very strong woman, very independent, which I liked. And the greatest thing about, she loves to go antiquing. Oh, I can't let that go. And I can go into an antique store and I'll be like, look at this. And she's like, oh, I love it. It's like you know her brain. And started seeing all that. And I said, this is, of course, we're in our 50s and no one wants to be alone. And I wasn't going to let that look back one day and wonder who Cindy was married to, because I knew it had to be me. And it was scary because I still didn't think she was going to say yes, But
So tell us that story.
well, well, it was at Reps again, and I had.
Which, by the way, has great burgers. I just okay.
And it was during COVID, and we were outside eating. Restaurants just opened again for the first time. It was like their first week open, and it was outside. And I said to Cindy, let's go to Reps and have dinner. And I was like, there were so many things I wanted to do, so many different ways of doing it. But I felt that is where my recovery began. And I met the woman of my dreams. Why not finish it there, the story, And that was like, because I was like, I'm creative. I'm like, I could do this and do that. But you know what? We've been through all that in life. You've been through all that drama and everything like that. This is reality now. You just want to get life started and let this woman know that I want to marry you. And we were talking, and I made a couple comments to her. I said, are you still interested in me?
He kind of did. He said,
Check yes or no.
well, it was kind of like he wanted to make sure I was going to say yes
Oh,
before
yeah.
he actually proposed.
Because I did say I love you once, and she never said it to me. So I was like, boy, this would be very
I
devastating.
mean, we had talked about possibly getting married one day, but yes, before he actually proposed, he did like 3 times. He
Yeah.
said, "So, do you still want to be with me?" I mean,
Like for the long term, I was saying, and
are
stuff
we
like
still?
that. I was just kind
And
of,
then
it was like a
I'm
job
thinking-
interview.
I'm thinking, what? I was kind of like, what's
Here's the
wrong
offer.
with you?
Yeah, it was. And then, of course, there's
Am I still employed?
right. And then I'm like, it's all women outside eating and stuff. And I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like,
No pressure.
no pressure whatsoever. Waitress is a woman. There wasn't, I don't think, a man in the whole mall. And I was like, this, can't get better than this. I said, so now if she does say no, it's going to look really good for me. I said, either one thing could happen. Everybody could be, oh, you poor guy, or like, sucker, So I just, after about the 15th question, I said, well, I think I'll be all right. Maybe she won't say yes today, but,
Might take a week.
yeah. But so I did. I went over to her and I got on my knee and I think Cindy, I could see in her face that she was like, oh, what are you doing? And then I was like, then I was starting to get a little worried because of that expression of like, oh boy, and like she knew what was coming. And then I asked her to marry me, and there was no hesitation. She said yes immediately, and I was just standing there because I was not expecting that.
He was relieved.
Did
He
you have a
wasn't shaking
ring?
anymore.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I pulled the ring out.
so
and
you
put it on
already-
her finger. I was ready.
Very uncertain, but you went.
Yeah.
went all in.
Yeah, I did. Oh, again. And so I just and it was great. She smiled, and the conversation, she was like with the faces and that, and after that she was all giddy. So it was I felt good.
Well, he got me a really pretty ring.
yeah.
Helps.
But that was a great moment. And like I said, it was, and it's not about how you do it, it's about why you want to do it. And that's what this one was all about.
Were you shocked?
Yes and no, because we had talked about it, because we had gotten back together and we had talked about getting married and me moving back in and stuff like that. And then, we had a couple more struggles along the way, and we worked through them, and everything was fine. I wasn't expecting it to happen like quickly, and I never would have expected it at Reps. But when it happened, to me it all fell into place too, because it's Reps' place. Why not? I mean, heck, we probably would have got married there if we could have, but they were closed for COVID. I mean, but seriously, because Reps' place has a lot of meaning to us. We used to go there every Thursday night, and then we'd meet up someplace else or something. And, so that it was very sentimental to me and romantic to me because it was at Reps' place. So
Again, this episode brought to you by Reps Place in
Yeah.
Rolling Meadows,
That
Illinois.
has fantastic burgers.
You're getting plugged tonight.
It's a free plug for
Yeah.
Reps Place. There you go.
If you guys could give advice to your previous selves at whatever stage that you were really at a low point, what would you say?
I would say whatever struggles that you went through, they may have been difficult, but everything happens for reasons, and everything in my life, every struggle that I've ever had, I've always come out ahead. I've always felt like God's always had my back. And for me, I think that faith has always kept me going. And I would say just keep moving forward. And every time, you get knocked down, get up, brush yourself off, and keep on going, because there's always going to be that light at the end of the tunnel, and I finally found that light with Tony. And like I said, at our age, I know that I finally found my person. I know that it's not going to be perfect. I know we both bring in a lot of stuff and baggage. But I also know that we're both older, we're more mature. We've both been through stuff that we know that what doesn't work and what does work. And this one's going to make it. And it's going to be worth it. And that's what I would tell my old self.
I would tell myself, if I could see myself, I actually wouldn't change a thing, because this is how it was meant to be, and this is what I had to do to get. And I was always taught that in life, that you got to work hard and never give up. And my grandfather used to tell me that, and he said, you got to be like a cockroach and just keep coming. And that's what they used to call me, the cockroach. And I would tell myself, if I could go back, just to keep going and don't listen to what your grandfather had said. And I did. And would it be great to go, meet Cindy when I was 20 years old or 22 years old? Yeah, absolutely. But were we ready for each other? And I think you have to go through what we went through to figure out what we really wanted in life. And it was a struggle, and it's rough and it's hard, but that's all in the past. And we've got today and hopefully tomorrow, and I'm sharing it with a wonderful person, and the woman I've always wanted to share it with. So I get the end, hopefully, the experience, with the best, instead of starting out with the best, because it's not how it works. You got to build that championship team, and I think we have it.
That's awesome. So last question. What is it that your partner does that you know they love you?
I think for me, there's a lot of little things, special things that he does, but what he really does that I know he loves me is when I'm at my lowest and I'm not feeling good about something, anything, and then I bring it into our relationship, and then it kind of makes things fizzle with us. He always comes through. It may not start out good. We might have to fumble a little bit, but he always comes through in the end. He always follows through. He might be angry as hell because I started something the night before, but that next morning, that next day, he always comes through for me, no matter what.
It's the cockroach.
It is.
Gotta wait till night when all the lights are off.
But that's it. That's how I know. It's not the little buying this or that. That to me doesn't mean jack. It's that coming through, knowing that no matter what, I could probably, be so mad at myself for something I said or did, or be mad at him, or just be mad at the world, or be upset or hurt or anxious or emotional, because that's what 50-year-old women do. But no matter what it is, and it's not right away sometimes, but he always, in the end, always comes through and picks up those pieces and fixes it. Always. That's how I know.
There's a million things I could say about Cindy. I mean, I've never had somebody that's so caring and taking care of me. And I know she loves me, because even when those occur, I still get breakfast and lunch in the next day. So she'll always send me off with a breakfast sandwich to work and a wonderful lunch. But the greatest thing I still love about Cindy is and I save every one of them and have every one of them. She leaves me a note every day in my lunchbox, and that note does so much for me, and it shows me how much she loves me. And sometimes they're short, and I can tell she's had a little rough day or something like that, and it'll be
Have
like
a great day.
yeah, wonderful day, love, wifey. And it's on a little Post-it, and I'm like, someone out my corner, I'm like, damn. And I'm like, whoo, gotta work hard tonight. So gotta, when the lights go off, gotta regenerate. But, and then, okay, it's gonna be all right. We can fix this. And we do. And then, 2 days later, the card's this big. I'm like that. And Cindy will say in it, thanks for sticking there with me or something like that, or pulling through, or and say, honey, you always find a way, and that's the thing I love so much about Cindy, that she sees I do try my hardest all the time, and so does Cindy. But those notes are, if I open the cooler one day and there's not a note, that's
And there's a problem.
there's a real big problem. So I got a lot of work to do.
There's always a note, and there's always the lunch is made the night before, and the breakfast stuff I leave sitting out, and then I'll get up and I'll make it.
Yeah.
But if I'm really mad, I won't get up.
No.
He'll have to put the bagel in the toaster.
But it's there waiting for
But
me.
it is there waiting
Right,
for
so
him.
I know it's not that bad.
Always there.
Oh my gosh. Tony and Cindy, thank you so much for being on our podcast today.
Thank you.
Thank
It was
you.
A
wonderful.
lot of fun.
It was fun.
People have been sharing stories since the beginning of time to bond and heal and grow. And we hope that by you guys sharing your story, it's enriched your lives and the lives of our listeners.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Brought us closer tonight.
Yep.
We want to wholeheartedly thank you, all of you out there, listeners in Couple Synergy Land. Our passion is in helping couples and people have happy and healthy relationships. And this podcast gives us a fun way of bringing our knowledge and expertise to you, our listeners. For all of you listening, please subscribe to our podcast and please leave us a review. If you have any questions, comments, or topic suggestions, please email us at contact@couplesynergy.com. For more information about Couple Synergy and our programs such as Relationship 101, the Home Study Course, the Couples Weekend Intensive, our online membership called Connections, and our premier coaching program called Couple to Couple, look us up online at couplesynergy.com.
And if you know someone who could benefit from this episode, please download it and share it. And thank you for listening.
Until next time, synergize your life and synergize your love.
You have been listening to Couple Synergy with Dr. Ray and Jean Ketkodian. Couple Synergy was recorded, edited, and produced by Dr. Ray and Jean Ketkodian. Voiceover and music entitled Breathe and Let Go was recorded and composed by Gina Gonzalez.